Welcome back to Sunday Night Spookies, the podcast dedicated to exploring the mysterious and the spooky unknown. My name is Lex.
And I'm Sarah.
And this is episode 7, our episode about Sarah Winchester and Lizzie Borden.
So many of you probably know who both of these people are. We're going to start off with Lizzie Borden, clearly, as you can tell from the rhyme in the beginning.
Both women are kind of known in the spooky community, but for different reasons.
Yeah, like the Sarah Winchester one is more paranormal related, but Lizzie Borden is just, spooky, I feel like she was just creepy.
Spooky, yeah. Unsolved, spooky, just
weird.
Yeah, like very notable.
Yeah. So Lizzie Andrew Borden was born on July 19th, 1860. Her mother died very shortly after she was born. Her father was a very wealthy bank president, and he quickly remarried a woman named Abby Gray. I think it was like 3 years after her mom passed, he married Abby. Lizzie had an older sister, Emma, and both of the girls did not like Abby. There was a lot of animosity between the two. Lizzie especially was very standoffish toward Abby. They actually had a really big falling out just a year or two before the Bordens were murdered. It was also known that Lizzie and her sister Emma had frequent conflicts with her father as well. Mr. Borden was a very frugal man, and he lived well below his means. Like I said, he was very wealthy. And they disagreed on, because he had rental properties as well, and the girls would help him keep up the properties. They had disagreements about that, disagreements about how he chose to run his household and his life. So Lizzie especially wanted to be a socialite. She saw her friends living very lavish lifestyles, going to parties, being involved in the community, and she was not. She focused a lot on church charity work. And it was said that the Borden's household also wasn't completely up to date during this time either. Like, they didn't have the luxuries of a modern home at the time. And Lizzie was very upset about that she wasn't allowed to have modern luxuries, be a socialite, live a lavish lifestyle.
I would be too.
Yeah. I mean, you got money, man. Let me go out drinking with my friends.
Right.
Anyway,
women weren't allowed to do anything.
Yeah, that's true that. She's very upset about it. It's also worth noting that Lizzie was just kind of weird. Like, a lot of people who interacted with her, her neighbors, friends, stuff like that, they just thought she was a very odd woman. She never married. She was very quiet. Like I said, did a lot of charity work and didn't really do much else. She was just kind of weird. Like, you know, the people that I'm talking about who are like quiet, they're always there, but you know, they're just off. So after the fact, it wasn't crazy that she was suspected of killing her parents. Now, right before the murders, the whole family got really sick. And Abby Borden was convinced that somebody had poisoned the bread that they had gotten from the baker, or like poisoned the meat that they had gotten. Like somebody had poisoned their food. Mr. Borden was not very well liked among the community. He was very hardworking man, very tough, kind of ran his businesses and his properties with a very iron fist. So Abby was petrified and just convinced that somebody was trying to kill them all and that they were being poisoned. Now, on the day of the murders, on August 4th, 1892, Andrew and Abby were brutally murdered with a hatchet. Both of them completely unrecognizable. Mr. Borden was missing his left eye. Like, his face was just kind of gone. They found, Lizzie stumbled upon her father's body on the sofa, and she ended up calling to the maid Bridget, and she said, "Please come, father's been dead," or something like that. And I think there was a neighbor that came to comfort her, and the neighbor ended up finding Abby. But you have more on this part of the story.
I do. So Lizzie found, in air quotes, her father and her stepmother killed. She did go outside, and she ran over to her neighbor, Adelaide Churchill, who asked her what was wrong. And she said, "Oh, Miss Churchill, do come over. Someone has killed father." So Churchill notified the police. The police came, followed by a doctor, and they determined that there was no fight or defensive measures taken by either of the victims. So that would suggest an ambush, or
they knew him,
or comfort around that person. The stepmother, Abby's body was cold when they found her, but Andrew's body was warm still. Yeah. They estimated that Abby was killed up to 90 minutes before Andrew was killed. So there was kind of a window.
That's a long time for an intruder, quote unquote, just kind of hang out in the house.
Right.
Without them noticing.
Without somebody being like,
and the sister, Emma, was out of town. Mm-hmm. She was visiting family or something. So it was just Lizzie and Bridget, the maid, in the house.
Andrew Borden had a wound to the temple that was 6 inches by 4 inches wide. And despite the amount of gore in his wounds and also Abby's wounds, the room was completely intact. Everything was where it was supposed to be. No sign of a struggle whatsoever. So the authorities thought that was a little bit odd.
Right.
So they started diving into suspects, and the first suspect was a Portuguese laborer who had visited the Borden home earlier in the day, requesting, quote, the wages that were owed to him, unquote. Andrew
Give
Borden,
me my money.
Right. Andrew Borden actually told him to, quote, call later, and they would handle it. He left, but they thought that he was a suspect because he wanted something from the Bordens.
Give me my money, man.
And the Bordens weren't
it's
obliging.
It's my money and I want it now.
What is that even?
Call J.G. Wentworth. Isn't that what it is?
877 cash now.
I think that's what it is. If not, then we are sadly mistaken and we're sorry.
We are wrong. 2 days after the murders, Lizzie Borden became a person of interest when it was found during investigations that she tried to purchase a poison called prussic acid from the pharmacy. So that's a little bit sketch in my opinion, I would say.
Yeah.
They didn't give it to her.
Okay.
So I actually read that I know Abby was worried about them being poisoned, and they weren't poisoned. They genuinely just had bad meat from the market. So that was not Lizzie.
Okay.
Even though she did try to get poisoned.
She tried to buy acid.
Yeah.
Did she say why she needed it?
She actually said that she needed it to clean a sealskin cape.
With acid.
With acid. So
right.
I don't own
sealskin.
A sealskin cape. So I don't know what cleaning that would entail. But maybe.
So who's wearing sealskin? How weird is that?
The elite. I don't know.
They lived well below their means.
Okay.
The elite makes it sound like the elite, like the group of ninjas down the road. The elite.
Okay. Like you said, there were rumors that Lizzie and Abby never really got along together peacefully, and that for a considerable time they had not spoken. However, there were family members that insisted that their relationship was completely normal. So a little bit of
not speaking to my stepmother for periods of time was normal.
Right. But, you know, a little bit of contradictory evidence happening here.
Yeah.
Did they get along? Did they not get along? But they did say that in Lizzie Borden's life, there was not one unmaidenly nor a single deliberately unkind act.
Except for when she hacked her head. But who am I to judge?
It's fine. So
clearly we think she did it. Sorry. Spoiler alert.
After further investigations, the police had determined that someone inside the home had to have killed Andrew and Abby. But there was no murder weapon and no blood anywhere than on the victims.
That's sketch.
Right. Lizzie's older sister, Emma, like you said, was not home at the time. So can't be a suspect if you're not in the area. Solid alibi. And Lizzie's story remained inconsistent at best. First, she would say that she didn't know where Abby was that morning, but then later revealed that she knew Abby was making the beds.
Why are you making the beds when you got a maid?
Right. Weird, but whatever.
Not be doing that.
That's some shit I would do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Lizzie also said that she was in the backyard barn when her father was murdered, looking for iron sinkers because they were going fishing in a few days. But the barn loft showed no signs of footprints, And the sweltering heat would have made it difficult for anyone to spend more than a few minutes there. And so she would have had to been like digging around up there in a huge dress.
Yeah.
Right. Like there would have been a scuffle mark, or things would have been moved, disturbed, whatever. And they were not.
All right, Lizzie. All right.
Mm-hmm. At this point, the theory that a tall male intruder, like the Portuguese laborer, were kind of ruled out because it didn't really make sense. And one doctor said that the hacking done was a, quote, sign of a deed by a woman who is unconscious of what she's doing, unquote.
How would you know that it was...
Anybody can hack up anybody. You don't...
specific.
Yeah, well...
By the measurement of this wound right here, I'd say it's a woman. And she's unconscious of what she's doing.
It's very specific. But that's
what... I'm enjoying my accents lately.
Yeah, guys. It's great. During examination, Lizzie's story continued. Just up and down, left and right. The sky is green. It was all lies.
The sky is green.
It was all lies. And so she went to court and she entered in a not guilty plea. She was taken to jail until her preliminary hearing on August 22nd, in which she was deemed probably guilty. And so
just probably. It's, you know.
So that's not saying you're probably guilty of going to jail. That's a probably guilty
before the trial.
You're gonna proceed to a grand jury. So
what a weird
I know
ruling.
That would never fly in modern time, but that's
probably.
Well, it's kind of like you present that evidence and you're like, okay, this is legitimate, let's pass it up or whatever.
Yeah, but like the formal probably guilty.
You're probably guilty.
It's just funny.
Yes. So in November, the grand jury met and heard new evidence from Alice Russell, a family friend who stayed with the Bordens in the days following the murders.
Alice, what you got to say, girl?
Alice says that Lizzie was burning a blue dress in a kitchen fire, allegedly because it was covered in old paint.
Lizzie.
However, after other testimony, it was discovered that Lizzie was wearing a blue dress the morning of the murders.
Pray tell.
Uh-huh. So, looking a little sketch, Lizzie. The evidence was more than enough to move her to trial.
Right.
During which the maid said that she never saw the rumored ugly relationship between Abby and Lizzie, and she said everything was pleasant.
I feel like that maid was, like, paid well or some shit.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like, you're the maid. They don't care what they say in front of you.
Right.
You had to have heard some shit.
Yeah, right. Right. Other prosecution witnesses disputed Sullivan's assertion that everything was fine. There was another girl, Hannah H. Gifford, who made a garment for Lizzie a few months before the murders, and she described a conversation with Lizzie in which she called her stepmother a mean, good-for-nothing thing, and said, "I don't have much to do with her. I stay in my room most of the time."
It's a little harsh, Lizzie.
That's some strong feelings there. But the most compelling testimony came, again, from Alice Russell. She described a visit from Lizzie the night before the murders in which she announced that she would soon be going on a vacation and felt, quote, that something is hanging over me. I cannot tell what it is, unquote. Then, according to Russell, after describing her parents' severe stomach sickness, which she had attributed to bad baker's bread, Lizzie revealed, quote, I feel afraid something's going to happen, unquote. Lizzie told Russell that she wanted to sleep with one eye open half of the time for fear somebody might burn the house down or hurt her father because he was so discourteous to people. So what she was doing there was really setting up the whole thing.
You know, that reminds me of, because we used to work together, it just reminded me, there's a specific woman we worked with that when she would call in the day before, she'd be like, oh, I think I'm going to be sick tomorrow.
I think I'm getting sick. And then the next day she'd always call in. But you know what, though? It's not even just one woman. It's everybody. It's like almost everybody does that. Like they call in to their boss or whatever. I'm the boss at the time. Just, oh, I'm going to be sick tomorrow. I just feel it.
I can't come in tomorrow. Sorry.
I'm not feeling good. And then the next day, I'm not coming in. Bye.
Yeah. Sorry. So dumb.
That's exactly what that reminds me of.
Show up to your jobs.
Russell recounted that when she asked Lizzie what she was doing with the blue dress that she was burning, she said, I'm going to burn this old thing up. It's covered with paint.
Paint or blood, Lizzie?
During cross-examination, defense attorney George Robinson attempted through his questions to suggest that a guilty person seeking to destroy incriminating evidence would be unlikely to do so in an open fashion, the way Lizzie allegedly did. That's probably true.
Yeah. But
there's too many coincidences here. Mm-hmm. Emma Borden, the older sister of Lizzie, was the defense's most anticipated witness. Emma testified.
She wasn't even there.
Well, she wasn't there for the murder, but she was there, character witness type of situation.
All right.
Emma testified that Lizzie and her father had a good relationship. She told jurors that there was a gold ring on the little finger of Andrew Borden's body, and that was given to him 10 or 15 years ago, at that time, by Lizzie, and he prized it more than almost anything else that he had. Emma also insisted that the relationship between Lizzie and Abby, the stepmother, were cordial, but she did admit that she had resentment herself over the transfer of a Fall River home to Abby and her sister. And another interesting fact is that the defense had also hoped that Emma would testify that the Bordens had a custom of disposing of remnants and pieces of dresses by burning, but the court ruled that evidence inadmissible. The defense summed up by saying that there was not one particle of direct evidence in the case from beginning to end against Lizzie Borden. There was not any blood, nor was there a weapon that they could connect to her in any way, shape, or form. The defense said that the state had failed to meet its burden of proving guilt beyond a reasonable doubt, and that it would be physically impossible for Lizzie, without any help, to have committed the crime within the timeline suggested by the prosecution. So, after all of the evidence presented from both the defense and the prosecution, the judge told the jurors that they should take into account Lizzie's exceptional Christian character, which entitled her to every inference in her favor. The jury deliberated for an hour and a half. It's not very long.
That's not very long
in the grand scheme of things. The clerk asked the foreman of the jury, "What is your verdict?" And the foreman replied, "Not guilty."
Wrong, sir. Wrong.
Lizzie let out a yell, sank into her chair, rested her hands on the courtroom rail, put her face in her hands, and then let out
whole shebang.
And then let out a second cry of joy. Emma, her counsel, and the courtroom spectators were rushing to congratulate her. She hid her face in her sister's arms and announced, "Now take me home. I want to go to the old place and go at once tonight."
That makes me so mad. Like, who else could have done it, Lizzie?
Mm-hmm.
Ugh.
I mean, at the end of the day, here's the thing. Innocent until proven guilty, even though she did it. Who else? Okay.
Yeah.
But, like, at the end of the day, the prosecution could not, without a reasonable doubt, prove it.
Yeah, that's true. And there's
it's
like
all
things
circumstantial
like that happen all the time today.
It's all circumstantial evidence, and like the prosecution's case was resting on who else.
Yeah, basically.
And it can't be a who else. It's got to be you did it, and these are all of the concrete reasons why you did it. She was suspicious. She burned the dress, but that's not enough.
Yeah, I think like if I was on jury duty for somebody that I didn't, like the prosecution didn't have like substantial amount of evidence, like it was really close, I think I would push for not guilty just because if he's innocent and I lock him up, that's like
the worst.
Terrible. And like it's also worse if he's a murderer and he's out.
Right.
Or a rapist and he's out. But like
so thankful I haven't had any jury duty yet.
Yeah, me either.
But some say that if the defendant had been a male, that they would have been much more likely to convict. But the jury was 12 men. Like, they're not going to lock up this, like, meek little woman who could, like, never hurt a fly. All her charity work. She's a Christian woman.
Oh, yeah. All of the charity. Please consider all of the charity she does. Like, you can do all the charity you want and still murder people.
After the trial, Lizzie Borden returned to Fall River, where she was from, and her sister Emma purchased an impressive home on the hill, which they called Maplecroft.
Which, that's supposed to be haunted.
Is it?
Yeah,
I bet it is.
Like, the Maplecroft, when you said it, just, like, jogged my memory. If you know the show Kindred Spirits with Amy Bruni and Adam, I can't remember his last name. Sorry, Adam. It's one of my favorite paranormal shows, Kindred Spirits. It's amazing. They actually took Chip Coffey to Maplecroft and did a whole investigation.
Oh, wow.
And they got like crazy evidence. It was a really good episode.
We really like Chip around here.
Oh yeah, we love Chip Coffee. Chip Coffee. I want to meet that man in all scarves.
All of the scarves. Lizzie, post-trial, took an interest in theater, attended many plays, and often associated herself with actors, artists, and bohemian types.
Because she acted so well. About
right.
Being innocent.
Emma moved out of Maplecroft in 1905, but Lizzie lived there until her death at age 67 in 1927.
That's pretty young.
She is buried right next to her parents at Fall River's Oak Grove Cemetery.
Of course she is. That's terrible.
There's the Lizzie Borden thing is always just, it's always been interesting to me because they couldn't prove it.
Right.
They couldn't prove it. And here's the thing. What if?
My question,
what if
where's
she
the blood splatter?
It was all on her dress. I don't know.
If you're
around
hatcheting,
the entire house, it should be everywhere.
If you're gonna hack somebody up to where they're missing eyes and parts of their face, you're gonna have so much blood splatter like behind, like it's gonna.
You would think.
Like what?
Trigger warning.
I'm just so sorry. I'm just so like, you know what? Aliens did it.
Mm-hmm.
Screw it. It was aliens.
I mean, like, here's the thing. There isn't enough evidence to say that she did it.
No,
she could just be a big fat liar.
Yeah.
But she might have not done it.
Yeah.
I mean, like, they can't. There's no proof.
Yeah.
I mean, like, honestly, you could never get away with that today.
No.
Because the technology that we have is so powerful and crazy that you could literally exhale and they'd be like, "Did you say you did it?" Is that what
you're doing?
Yeah. Like it's.
Oh, guilty. Sorry.
But back then, I mean, like if they don't, there's no murder weapon.
Mm-mm.
You can't find the murder weapon if there's no murder, right?
Right.
Like, yikes.
Or the blood thing that just, like, not that would prove that she did it, but like the fact that the house was clean, except
right, like immediate.
And that like suggests that they were killed elsewhere and brought in.
I don't even know.
There's no blood splatter ever anywhere, like, just the whole case is
it's
weird.
Wild.
Yeah.
It's just wild. I just don't understand how, like, obviously there was no time for anyone to scream.
Mm-hmm. Because there was people in the house.
Well, she ambushed.
Unless the maid was in on it.
Right? I say someone, the killer, ambushed the stepmother, Abby, while she was making the bed.
Well, Andrew was sleeping.
Wouldn't, right, and so she wouldn't have screamed because if you ambush somebody from behind, it's just, you're donezo before you can even make a noise. And then an hour and a half later, then the killer, whoever that may be,
Lizzie,
then goes and kills her father who's napping. It's just the timing is just, I don't understand. Because if you're going to just do it all in one go, why are we waiting an hour and a half in between? And that means she's walking around with a blood-soaked dress all around the house. I don't understand. Either
the coroner or whoever got the timing very wrong and Abby was killed very much in advance. Or there was multiple people in on it. Like, for it to be that clean, that lack of evidence, no murder weapon, like, it's just so bizarre.
I really like this case.
Yeah, it's frustrating, but it's so interesting, which is why we wanted to do it.
And we know it's not paranormal, right? But
it's like, it interests us so much that we didn't want to not do it.
Well, I decided to look up different paranormal experiences at the Lizzie Borden house, and I found a couple of different things. People have seen apparitions, or they've heard voices. There was one article in particular that I read where a woman stayed inside of, I believe, Abby's room, and the fire alarm went off there at 3 a.m. And we all know 3 a.m. is the witching hour. And so it's a little bit scary because one of the people who worked there said that, the electrical isn't perfect. It's an old house, but that the fire alarm does go off around 3 a.m. quite frequently. So we can't deem that as paranormal, but it's definitely a coincidence to look into. Even if you believe the Lizzie Borden house to not be haunted, I think you would still have a pretty difficult time falling asleep there or even staying there in comfort because they kind of have it set up like a museum. And so all around the house, there are framed pictures of crime scene photos. You will see crime scene photos of Abby Borden's body, of Andrew Borden's body, and they're in the same location where the crime and the murder occurred. And so that's a little bit unnerving. The last thing I want to do is roll over in the middle of the night and be face to face with a crime scene photo. But I think that adds to like the air and the mystery of the Lizzie Borden house. The house where the murders occurred is now known as the Lizzie Borden Bed and Breakfast Museum. And so you can go there and take tours and also spend the night. You have the option to stay in Abby's room and Andrew's room, Emma and Lizzie's like suite, and you can stay there, stay the night, have a tour, and even eat breakfast in this house. That's super cool. Also a little bit unnerving, but this is something that we really hope to do because being in somewhere that is considered to be like this haunted or have this morbid of a history, it could really mean really great things for us. We're going to be working towards that. I'm hoping for next year. I think that would be a really cool place to go next year if we could get a hold of it. Hopefully we can, but I think it would be really difficult to deny the level of activity that must happen at the Lizzie Borden murder house when crimes as grisly as the ones that were committed there happened. Of course, there's going to be a lot of paranormal activity, whether it's residual or kind of just like intelligent.
The Winchester house, on the other hand, has a little bit more of a paranormal history. The Winchester Mystery House is located in San Jose, California, and was once the personal residence of Sarah Lockwood Pardee Winchester. What a mouthful. Mm-hmm. She's the widow of William Wirt Winchester. Terrible last name. W-I-R-T. Wirt. William Wirt Winchester was the heir to a very large portion of the Winchester Repeating Arms fortune. I'm sure many of you know what the Winchester Rifle Company is, which is still a very large gun company today. Sarah was born in 1839 in New Haven, Connecticut. She was also married there in 1862 to William again. His father, Oliver Winchester, was the first owner of the Winchester Rifle Company. Sarah and William had one daughter in 1866 named Annie. But unfortunately, tragedy struck the family when Annie ended up developing marasmus. It's a form of like extreme malnutrition, and she ended up dying 10 days after her birth. And it said that Sarah took that extremely difficultly. Like she didn't, I mean, I'm sure losing a child is terrible, but she was especially like, she didn't really get over it. It was something that she still struggled with for her whole life. Oliver, Sarah's father-in-law, died in 1880, giving full ownership of the Winchester Company to William, but only for a short amount of time because William died of tuberculosis in 1881. So didn't have that luxury of owning a company for that long. That left Sarah with an inheritance of $20 million, which is equivalent to around $530 million today. I just saw your face. Yeah, I know.
It's fine. I only have like $10 in my bank account, but it's totally
Same,
cool.
Girl. She also received 50% of the ownership of the Winchester Company because she was a woman. She couldn't have full ownership.
Of course not.
Of course not. And she also received a daily income of $1,000 a day, or $26,000 in today's money. Daily.
That's just what people make in a year.
Oh, yeah. Majority of people make between 20 and 30 grand a year. And that's what she was getting per day. It's fine.
Well, it pays to marry rich, is what I just heard.
Shit. I made a mistake. Just kidding, Austin. I love you. So, to Sarah, the inheritance that she received and the portion of the company she received, to her was just blood money. She didn't want it. Thought it was terrible. She viewed it as money from the deaths of all these people that were killed with these rifles, and she didn't know what to do with it. She didn't want it. So she ended up going to Boston to see a psychic medium to find out what she does with all this blood money. Oh, all this money. What do I do with it? Terrible. And apparently when Sarah just showed the medium the guilt over this blood money, The medium told her that she would be forever tormented unless she appeased the spirits of all the victims of the Winchester rifles. So the medium basically suggested that the only way that they could possibly avoid eternal damnation from these spirits was to build a house for the lost souls. Now, this is something that I found interesting in the research, because I was always told that she had to keep building to confuse the spirits, but the medium specifically told her to build a house for the lost souls.
Interesting.
So
that's not what I thought it was. I thought it was like to confuse them.
Right, and that's what I've heard my whole life, is this house that Sarah built. And that's what she ends up doing later. That's her take on it later. But I found multiple like sites and articles that I read. The medium specifically told her just to build a house to house the spirits.
Okay.
And she was like, nah, we're gonna confuse these bitches.
Right. Because she didn't want to be tormented by them.
I get it. If you feel like you're gonna be tormented.
Why would you want to share a house with people who are going to torment you?
For real.
You know? I get it.
So very soon after her visit in 1884, she packed up everything she had and bought an 8-bedroom farmhouse originally in San Jose, California, and immediately started construction on the house that wouldn't end until her death in 1922. She hired a team of carpenters to build directly onto the farmhouse as she saw fit. Still fearing a life full of torment, she regularly visited mediums and spiritualists of all kind to direct her on how to build the house and what to do with it.
Actually, I read that Mrs. Winchester built the home one day at a time without using any blueprints.
Oh, fun.
Dangerous game.
That takes some skill, man.
And legend had it that she would go into her seance room, which was located in the exact center of the house, or the heart of the home. Yes, and she would communicate with the spirits there to receive the building instructions for the next day's work.
That's it. How? I'm just like, why?
Well, obviously, she got some answers because she kept building.
Oh yeah, she didn't stop building literally until 1922.
That's 36 years.
Yeah, that and just
That's
constant. And it started as, we'll like go through the list of what's included later, but it started as just an 8-bedroom. I mean, that's very grand for a home now. 8-bedroom, just old farmhouse. So like I said earlier, her main goal was to confuse the spirits, conflicting of what the medium told her to build a house for the lost souls. But she would add like staircases that led to nowhere, windows that opened to interior rooms, doorways that opened up to several story drops, just open to nowhere here. Step out and die.
Yep.
And hallways that looped back to the start. And you have the list of what was in there, right?
So the formerly 8-bedroom farmhouse had evolved into a 24,000 square foot house.
Jesus.
That's massive. Inside the house, there was 10,000 windows, 2,000 doors, 160 rooms, 52 skylights, 47 stairways and fireplaces, 17 chimneys, 13 bathrooms, 6 kitchens, all in 7 stories.
7 stories.
A house that is 7 stories tall. It was built at the price tag of $5 million back then in 1923, or
oh no,
$71 million today.
Jesus Christ.
Which, like, to put it into context for you, like, there's celebrities who are buying $2 million houses, and they're like lavish and extravagant. Even $10 million. I mean, $71 million in today's money. That's
ridiculous.
That's a massive.
And like for
expense.
nothing, because you get lost in there.
Right. I mean, is it beautiful? Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely it is.
There's actually, now that we're talking about it, if you go to, I think it's just the WinchesterMysteryHouse.com, there is, you can buy a virtual tour. And we did it. We haven't watched it yet because we're assholes. We're gonna.
Indeed.
But yeah, you can buy the tour and you can take the virtual tour and it's like interactive and stuff like that. So I'm excited to do that.
Me too.
But Sarah didn't just add on to the house for the spirits. She also added a few luxury touches to the mansion for herself, including gold fixtures, parquet flooring, crystal chandeliers, gilded doorways, and then she had stained glass windows designed by Tiffany & Co. And it was the Tiffany & Co.'s first director ever.
Oh,
that
wow.
designed her windows. I don't know what to do with all this blood money.
Right. Let me go to Tiffany's and get some stained glass windows.
The home also had the most up-to-date technology for the time period. Forced air heating, running hot water, both of which was very uncommon for when she added them in.
Well, when you have that much money,
that much blood money.
What's just like a tiny expense?
Right.
Like forced air heating.
Yeah. And the forced air heating was like the talk of the town. Like that was crazy that she added that in. She also bought a few other properties in California just as vacation homes, I guess. But she never stopped building on the mansion.
For 36 years.
For 36 years.
That is my entire life plus 10.
Wow.
And I feel like I've been alive for eternity. And so
these knees have seen some things.
Indeed. I can't stand up without creaking.
No, you look like a glow stick.
It's actually a problem. But Sarah Winchester was only 4 foot 10 inches tall.
Hey, my grandma's that height. Shout out to Grandma Yvonne.
Hi, Grandma Yvonne. I don't know you.
She's a good lady.
So she built the house according to her size also. So there was low doorways and unusual easy riser staircases, such as the switchback stairway. That's in quotes, so that must be like what it's called. That leads from the carriage house to the hayloft. The staircase consists of 44 steps that travel 100 feet in length, but only rise 9 feet to the second floor above. So
that's just a
very short steps.
Extra long pathway for nothing.
Right. Winchester's favorite spiritualistic motif is the spider web. And that can be seen throughout the house, and her obsession with the number 13 can also be seen throughout the house.
Unlucky.
Particularly noticeable in the house's 13th bathroom, which is accessed by 13 stairs and contains 13 windows.
13 windows in a bathroom.
That's gotta be a big bathroom.
Well, privacy. I don't want the walls covered in windows in my bathroom. Also, did you find like what the spiderweb represented to her?
The spiderweb is symbolic of tying up loose ends and different connections, which makes sense because she was trying to
connecting with spirits and like tying up loose ends that her father left her, or her father-in-law left her.
Yep.
Like, oh, you left me with this gun company that's killed a bunch of people. Now I have to deal with all your ghosts.
Right. Definitely
Which
interesting.
I don't think that's how it works, but
another thing that is interesting is that Sarah Winchester used the daisy to decorate her house. So they think that's her favorite flower. That alone is not interesting, but what's interesting is that the daisy has 13 petals.
Of course it does. What's her obsession with 13? 13 is an unlucky number.
I don't know, man. There are a couple of unique areas in the house. There are 3 adjoining rooms known as the Hall of Fires because they contain 7 sources of heat. So there's 4 fireplaces and 3 hot air registers there.
So if you want to sweat something out,
go to the Hall of Fires.
Go to the Hall of Fire. Good God.
There's also the 7-Eleven staircase from the bedroom of Sarah Winchester's niece and secretary, Marion.
Marion?
It accesses 3 different levels of the house. It's said that if you go down the first 7 steps and back up the next 11 on the other side, you're technically still on the 2nd floor, but you're 3 feet higher than where you started. But if you go down the first 7 steps again, make a right turn, and go down 6 more, making 13 stairs, you'll find yourself on the 1st floor.
Does not compute, sorry.
My brain honestly can't even understand
how did they do that without blueprints? Like, how did they do all this shit without, like, extreme mathematical calculation?
You know, well, they didn't, and that's why you can walk upstairs one way and be on a different floor, and walk down them another way and be on a different
Wasn't that the point, though?
I think so.
That's why you can open a door and fall 7 feet to your death.
The 1906 San Francisco earthquake caused a significant amount of damage to the front portion of the house, and Winchester had never experienced an earthquake before, so she took it as a sign from the spirits that she was spending too much time and money on the front part of the house.
Oh my gosh.
Which was almost done.
But now had to be fixed up.
It couldn't really be done because, according to the psychic...
No, according to her, the psychic told her to build a house.
Oh, okay.
Well, according to her own philosophy in this whole portion.
Right. She wasn't allowed to finish it.
Yeah.
In response to that, Winchester had the front 30 rooms boarded off, and they were never opened again until after she died.
What? For what was in those rooms? Did she need anything in there? Apparently not.
Apparently not.
How? Okay. Imagine having so much flippin' money that you can just take 30 rooms of your house and board them off and still have plenty of space. Plenty of space, plenty of rooms. 30 rooms.
And today you can go and you can have a tour there. You can only tour 110 of the 160 rooms.
Why? I feel like I'm being ripped off.
Right.
I wonder if they're in the virtual tour. Like, I wonder if those
They might
last.
be. I'll have to look into it. So that's kind of it for like the home itself. I do have a couple of rumored hauntings that happen there. There is said to be residual hauntings there, specifically in the grand ballroom and the chilly basement of the estate.
Ooh, specifically the chilly basement.
Yeah, well, all basements are chilly, I kind of feel like.
This isn't. We're fine here. It's not that chilly.
We're fine.
It's haunted, but not chilly.
Right.
Sorry, Rachel.
Watch, it's gonna be freezing down here from now on. She's like, okay, let's turn up the cold.
Turn up the cold, turn down the temp.
Turn up the cold, because ghosts are cold. So Rachel's like, just like,
pump up the cold.
She's like, you guys aren't cold?
Amp up.
Amp it up, Rachel.
Don't, shit. You don't sleep here at night.
You're right.
Alone.
Rachel's nice.
Don't amp up the cold.
It's said that there are residual hauntings, specifically in the grand ballroom and the chilly basement. They involve a famous wheelbarrow ghost, who is seen working on the fireplace and or pushing a wheelbarrow full of ash and coal.
He's doing his job.
He's just hanging out and doing the things he's got to do.
Look at him.
For those of you who don't know, residual, because I've mentioned it a couple of times over like the course of like the entire podcast. If you don't know what residual hauntings are, it's like a spiritual rewind and playback.
Yeah.
So it's not an intellectual ghost. It's not going to engage with you. It's just going to... You might hear something.
Yeah, you might get EVPs, but it's basically like they've done something so much in their life or something that... Or they've done something so important in their life that they're stuck in that motion.
And that's what they're doing. And you might hear something while they are reliving the actions that they would have done in their life. But they're not, if you ask them a question, they're not going to answer you. It's just like...
Yeah. For example, there's an episode of Kindred Spirits that I watched where they did like an old store and they caught footsteps and a doorbell jingling in an EVP. And then they heard like some grumbling and it said purchase with a question mark. And they was thought that it was the owner of the store that was haunting it. And he would come down the steps every single day, unlock his door like to the store, and he would ask, is this something you'd like to purchase? Like that was like a known documented thing. And that's what basically residual haunting is, just going through the motions.
Yeah, it's the routine of a person.
Yeah.
Just replaying over and over.
What if you get stuck brushing your teeth? Like what if that's how your eternal...
Honestly, there's worse ways to spend my eternal life.
Yeah, there is.
You know what I'm saying? Like that's... I don't know. There's also intelligent hauntings, and these are the kind of hauntings where they would interact with you. Like they can hear you, they provide
might touch you,
intellectual responses.
They'll like respond to your question,
touch you. So like they're like intellectual hauntings are like of the active mind. There's also intelligent hauntings at the Winchester Mystery House. Some people have been like touched, grabbed, had their shirts or skirts being tugged on. But one really noticeable experience was that of the maintenance worker, Denny. And he said one morning he went to the water tower, he heard footsteps above him, and so he went up the stairs to tell whoever was there, like, hey man, you cannot be here. This is not...
Get out of here.
Part of a tour, this is not part of the house, you can't be here. So he went up, no one was there. And it seemed like the footsteps were always one step ahead of him and one floor above. He went all the way to the roof. No one was there.
Good old Denny, just doing his job.
Yeah. The most commonly reported supernatural occurrence, though, is the appearance of shadowy figures. So probably just like, oh, I see something. Oh, is
At
that
the corner of your eye.
out of the corner, like quick out of the corner of your eyes. Some people say that they've seen shadow figures roaming around corners, down long hallways, or appearing in windows.
I assume that at least some of those have to just be disorientation. Like, just for the purpose of debunkability, we really gotta coin that term. Because I can imagine you're so disoriented in that house that, like, if I turn a staircase and end up in a hallway that leads to the ceiling or something, and I turn back around, like, I'm gonna be a little freaked out, a little on edge, disoriented. So I assume that some of those just have to be
Right. Like
disorientation.
because your brain isn't used to
Being played that hard.
like being like yeah. Well, your brain's not used to like the like twists and turns.
The illogical layout.
Right. So like where there should be a corner, there could also be a staircase or something. So your
Right.
brain's just like can't comprehend
The hell's happening?
the weird like the chaos that is the layout
Yeah.
of the Winchester house.
And some of them I'm sure have to be real if there's like many claims of that. I wonder, this is like, we'll never know this, but I wonder if it actually confused the ghosts. And I wonder if it actually, and they're just like trapped there. And they're just as disoriented as we are.
Could be. Well, we could talk about the beauty and the perplexity that is the Winchester house all day long.
Yeah.
I highly recommend that you go to the Winchester Mystery House website because there are so many pictures on there.
And not to mention the tour. You could take a
It's-
virtual tour.
For like $9 or something.
There was ones for $6, but the one that we got for $9 was supposed to be like the, not interactive, but like the updated, super high def, whatever. And I'm like, it's $9.
Right. And I could tell you how beautiful this place is, but you really just have to look at it.
Yeah, we'll post a few pictures on the Instagram just because, but highly recommend the website. It's so cool, especially if this stuff interests you. Like, we could spend all day on the website.
Yeah, it's so beautiful. I definitely want to go there in real life. California is very far away.
Lots of money. Speaking of travel, we have now opened a PayPal account. Just because we have a whole bucket list of places we want to visit, places we want to investigate for content for you guys.
In a very limited wallet.
We're two college kids who deliver food for a living.
Right.
With DoorDash. So, and this is by no means obligated. This is just something that we've set up for the future, just as a, hey, this is our bucket list. If there's anything specific, like any specific location that you really want us to go to and you want to throw a couple bucks in the PayPal and say, hey, this is for when you guys want to visit the Winchester house.
Right.
Or whatever. That's basically what it's for. Again, no obligation. If you're a super nice person and you add some money to it, we are forever grateful for you. We also have affiliate links. We are affiliates with Buzzsprout, which is our hosting website. If you want to make your own podcast, check out our description. You can get a link to make your own podcast. Also affiliate for Instacart. We love Instacart. I use it every week. Love Instacart. I hate going grocery shopping. I hate going to the store. I hate people. So getting my groceries delivered to my door is great. We have a link for that. And also I've linked the spirit box and the EMF detector we use in the description box. These are affiliate links again, so we do get a very small kickback of whatever you order if you decide to. Again, totally optional. If you want to just like us on Facebook, that's great too. We appreciate that just as much.
Every like, every comment helps tremendously. And you can do those things on our Instagram, where you can find us at Sunday Night Spookies. You can also find us on Twitter at Sunday Spookies and on Facebook at the Sunday Night Spookies podcast. We hope you enjoyed this episode of Sunday Night Spookies.
Join us next week for our upcoming on-location investigation of Dead Man's Hollow and Green Man's Tunnel in Pennsylvania.
New episodes are released every Sunday evening. Thanks so much for listening, and as always, stay spooky. Emma moved out of Maplecroft. Emma moved.
This has got to go with the bloopers.
I jumped so
This has to. My dog just sneezed. That's all that happened.
And we all peed our pants.
It's not even dark in this basement. It's so well lit. Oh my God.
Jumped out of my skin.
Me too. Still a huge gun company to gay.
To gay.
To gay.
Okay. I want to do that one over again. That one's going in the bloopers, though.